I'm an estate planning attorney for, all the people who are new to my platform. Assad has extensive experience in business law. I don't know if you want to give a little intro about yourself, what you do, what you focus on.
Sure. So our goal is to make sure that we protect our corporate clients and their interests in whatever way we can. Along with that, we represent small businesses, helping them set up, basically from start to finish. Um, we also do all different types of agreements that businesses have amongst each other with their employees. I personally do executive compensation plans for employees. Our office has represented a number of unions in the past. That's just one aspect of what we do in the office. We also handle some criminal law. My partner does that. We do litigation, all different types of civil litigation. We handle in-house. Again, it brings back it's so many things that we've learned how to do in the past. So we just say, listen, if you have a question, just give us a call. That's the easiest way I can say it.
The reason I brought you on is because I see a lot of people have started their own business either through an accountant or online. They've decided, they're ready to take that step. They're entrepreneurs, whatever it is, or they have business partner. They're forming a corporation because that's what their accountant told them to do, or they know that they're supposed to do that. They've ordered their corporate book online. They've gotten everything, and now they're running their business. But we know, and we want to explain, what are some of the problems that happen in that situation?
So that's any business that starts up, they're tight on money, right? And let's be realistic. That's the bottom line. Everybody's tight on money. They don't know how much they're going to be spending. They're going into this venture. They don't know. It's scary. It's a big step for anybody to open up a business. So I think a lot of times what people and owners usually do is say, listen, I heard I have to set up a corporation. Let me go online, let me Google corporation. Boom, done. It's not that hard to set up a corporation, but what you're setting up online isn't going to give you the protections that you might expect from a corporation. And those things only happen if you have the ancillary documents in place besides just the the 3 pages you get from filing your corporation online. And I think that's what, we should discuss a little bit in detail.
And there's certain the liability protections.
That when you file with New York State, you're actually creating a new entity. So it's a new person that is running this business. It is the business. And you get something called the EIN or tax identification number, TIN number, and it's basically like the company's social security number. That's the easiest way to put it. So now anything that the company does, the company is responsible for, not the owners. So that's where you have legal protection now as an owner, because your corporation is going to be liable for anything that happens, not you as an individual. Yes, it gets a little complicated because you have to do different types of accounting, but at the end of the day, it's worth it because you don't want to risk your personal assets when you're running your business. That's the bottom line. So those are the benefits of having a corporation. And we set them up for clients, all different sizes. Depending on what type of business there is, there are tweaks and different things that have to be discussed. But for general purposes, you should always have a corporate. It's almost a no-brainer. And as you mentioned, there are some fees that are associated with having a corporation, but those fees are nominal compared to the legal, liability. And I'm talking about money that can be lost on an individual level when it comes to these things. So, number one, lawsuits are not cheap. Yeah.
And I want to move in now to estate planning so that we don't run out of time, because the next step is assuming that let's just assume that our viewers here do have a company, they are properly set up.
Okay.
But have you thought about what happens if you have a partnership or you have employees in a business and one of the owners passes away? And this is what I see a lot in my practice is the business owners have not thought this part out, or they assumed that their documents covered this.
No. Okay, so let's talk about sole proprietors. Right? I'll start with that because that's the simplest type of business that's recognized in New York State. And again, I mentioned that a sole proprietor is one that's not registered with the New York State Division of Corporations. So there's no formal filing. If that owner dies, the law says that his company dies with him. That's it.
So from from a probate perspective, that's a nightmare for the family because let's say he's running a deli, right? Nobody's going to be able to go in there and deposit the money.
Everything shuts down.
The bank accounts are shut.
Everything shuts down. Right? Exactly. Everything shuts down at that point. We have small businesses that there's ways to limit that to an extent. If you have a very tiny business, for example, you can always have a spouse or a manager being a signatory, a co-signer, right? Not a co-owner, but a co-signer. And most owners have managers who are allowed to sign off on checks and things like that. But the kicker is that that's only valid while the owner's alive.
Right.
As soon as the owner dies, that power is gone. There's nothing there. So for those people, it's vital to be able to have some kind of succession plan, right? They have to have something in writing where they're giving a person that they trust the power to go in and close up shop. As simple as let's make it a deli. You have a deli, there's $15,000 worth of inventory sitting there and a family that needs $15,000. They're not going to be able to access that money. And guess what's going to happen? By the time they access it through the court system, everything in that deli is going to be moldy.
Not to mention right? The landlord's going to be billing for the rent.
And they can't pay. Exactly. Right? So there's so many things. You're not going to be able to close up any accounts because you need to get, this better than I do, a letter of administration. Right? Because we're going to assume that these people didn't have a will, they don't have an executor. So they're going to need a letter of administration, which everybody knows. You can tell them how long it takes to get that. That's fun stuff.
I would say, anywhere from like 3 to 9 months. It's a long time. And if it's a contest, if the families are fighting, forget about it even longer.
So that's that's for sole proprietorship. And I'm going to segue into partnerships the same way. Unless your partnership agreement stipulates and lays out what happens in the event of a partner's death, you're going to court. You're going to go to court and you're going to be fighting because the family who just lost that loved one, and if they know anything about this business, they're going to come after you. They're going to come after that surviving owner because unless they have something written out, it just doesn't make sense. And now, some people say, you know what, I want the 50% to go to my family. And I've seen this happen too, where they think that they've thought everything through. But guess what? The spouse doesn't know what's going on with the business.
Right.
They don't know anything about the business in some situations. And you're now stuck dealing with a spouse who has 50% ownership of a business, and partner B, who actually knows how to run the business, is stuck, can't make any business decisions because now he has to sit there and explain things to, the guy's wife. There are ways to get around it, but it has to be drafted in a way where it makes sense. And this is where you have to speak to some attorney who knows what they've been talking about. I've done it in the past where they can ask the right questions, get the right answers, and then draft the agreement specifically tailored to what the client's needs are. And again, a lot of people say, oh, I'm just going to Google the agreement online. Go for it. And then give my cell phone number to your family so that when the problem happens, I bill you at my hourly rate.
Right.
And right. And then at the end of the day, I'll end up making more money.
People, investors, and they're buying up lots of properties, and each of those LLCs has their own. Each of the properties have their own LLCs, but then there's nothing, they're just doing them really quick and fast, and they're not doing the proper documentation for what
That
happens when that owner dies. And so now you
exactly.
have
Yeah.
one member of the LLC is died, all these properties, nobody can collect the rents. The family's
Nobody
like,
can do
what do
anything.
I do?
Yeah. You can't
So
do
you
anything. So you get a letter of administration, and guess what? You're stuck in that sick, what is it, 3 to 9 month period again. And
yeah,
that's
and then
that's
good luck
basically
trying
what
to collect
people.
the rents from the tenants not a year later.
Well, who's going to pay rent a year later? You're going to have it just ends up turning into a mess. So, the whole point of all of the point of this whole seminar to get the information out is to let people and everybody who's listening be aware that just because you opened up an LLC or just because you opened up a corporation, you have to have a shareholders agreement in place, and it should be tailored to what your specific needs are as a company and as a family. And the same thing with LLC operating agreements. You can open up an LLC, but it must spell out exactly what the succession plan is in the future. And it's not, once it's done, you don't have to worry about it. That's the main goal, is to make sure that you have that peace of mind.
We have another question came in from Will Willie. My house is under a trust now. Congratulations. I love hearing that. Okay. Do I need to put the house under an LLC? So this is a great question because there is a
That's,
misconception
that's a good
that
one.
trusts provide liability protection, and that's not the case, unfortunately. So it does depend on which type of trust you have, right? We have two trusts generally. There's a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust. So there can be some protection if you have an irrevocable trust. But if you have tenants, and that's where the liability and the exposure is, you would want to consider doing an LLC, and then the LLC can be owned by the trust. So instead of having a membership certificate in your name, Will Willie, you would have it into the name of your trust. The only concern you may run into is with your lender. So if you own the house outright, no big deal. You can do whatever you want with it. If you have a mortgage, you are doing a deed transfer from your name or the trust name to the LLC. You might have to check with the bank to make sure they will approve it. I don't think you mentioned yet a buy-sell agreement.
No.
Can
Okay.
you talk
Good.
about
Good.
those a
Good.
little bit? Because I
Good.
think
Good.
that's
Good. Good. Okay, so buy-sell agreements. Buy-sell agreements usually come into play when there are multiple owners, or partners, or shareholders, or members of an LLC. And what this does is it allows for the transfer of ownership to occur in a smooth, organized manner. What I mean by that is me and Leslie own something together. I die, and my family and Leslie should know exactly what happens. If it's a income producing asset, then there's different options that we can exercise, and it's all dependent on what exactly it is that me and Leslie decide we want to do. If that happens, option one could be Leslie has the right to purchase my half of the business or property. Um, there's a ton of questions that come up. Like, let's say we bought a house 20 years ago, we bought it together. Now we have 20 years worth of appreciation. Whoa, sounds like a fight to me, right? What are we gonna do? Are we gonna get far? Are we gonna talk about fair market value 20 years later? Or are we gonna say, listen, we started this whole business together. I'm gonna give you a discount, and you're gonna give me a discount. How is all that gonna work? Now, people need to understand these are private agreements, and they can work whichever way you want them to work, as long as they're legal. We can draft them the way you want them drafted.
They can be updated. You're not set in stone.
Exactly.
I tell my estate planning clients too, like, you don't have to decide for the next, what you're going to want 20 years from now. You have to decide what you want right now, and then we
Yep.
can revisit this. And
Yeah.
it's a paradigm shift, because the more you start thinking in these ways, the more the more advanced your thinking's going to get, and you're going to want to update it, and that's what we do for you. Yeah. And look out for your friends. You know, you might have friends that are business owners. Maybe you kind of are thinking about a business, but you're not there yet, but you know people that are, you know, side hustles, all those people that are making money on the side while, you know, mom, stay-at-home moms making a little extra money, or people have jobs where they're doing consulting on the side. Those are business owners. People who own homes, you know, they think they're just collecting rent. That's a business.
And, yeah,
We need those
that's
protections.
a whole nother. We could talk for another half hour about that stuff because there's some crazy laws that just came out on, you know, in different types of side hustles. And you know what? I think we need to talk about side hustles next
Yeah.
because
So
you know,
yeah, look out for your side
basically,
hustle people. Tell them to call us. They got it. We got to look at their books. We got to make sure they got everything right, because they're gonna do well, and it's gonna be too late before they realize they didn't do the planning. Thanks everyone for joining us, and thank you, Assad, for talking with us, and we'll do it again. And
all right.
yeah.